All right, welcome once again to Cool TV. This is CROSSFIRE. It's a Wednesday morning, and wherever and everywhere that you're watching us from, we're back again to bring you stories that are making headlines, and at the same time, we'll bring you information that will make you take an informed decision, especially as it borders around activities and goings on in our country, Nigeria. Now, we have a lot of stories that we will be sharing with you today. I have Ishoma Againe in the studio. Ishoma, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to CROSSFIRE.
All right. I mean, I believe very strongly that now that President Muhammadu Buhari is back on ground, and a lot of things are beginning to happen. You know, on Monday he said, yes, we're coming up with more policies, you know, to help business thrive.
And the economy also.
And then the economy to be revamped and all of that. And then yesterday, the same thing, the president spoke. I mean, the president just keeps speaking every day. I think every time when he's back in the country, relaxed, he tries to just mop up, you know, information and activities so that he can, you know, reach out to the nation and say one or two things. And that's why our first story this morning borders around what the president actually said yesterday. And the president said democracy has come to stay in Africa. Now, President Muhammadu Buhari has expressed happiness over the sustenance of democratic rule of the African continent. Now, the president stated that the inauguration of President Alpha Conde of Guinea-Conakry for the second term in office. Now, represented by his vice, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, President Muhammadu said the conduct of peaceful election and transition from one government to the other on the continent, it was clear that democracy has come of age in Africa. At the ceremony attended by several African presidents and leaders, the Nigerian leader also noted that peaceful elections were producing the right leaders in Africa. Now, it is really very instructive. Nigeria actually witnessed you know, a U-turn, let me put it that way, a very big turn away from the way elections are conducted in Nigeria. Now, a lot of things probably, you know, informed our last election. I mean, the 2015 elections has suddenly become like a reference point to other elections that we'll witness in Nigeria. I mean, vis-a-vis a lot of other thoughts and premonitions from other countries. The 2015 election was prophesied about 2 years ago by the United States of America that that's the election that is going to break Nigeria, but it still didn't break us. Now, there were so many prophecies. A lot of men of God issued prophecies. So person is going to do this, that is going to happen, and all of that. But interestingly, I mean, we witnessed a couple of things that nobody, completely unprecedented. The former president picking up a call, even while compilation of results was still going on, he picked up a call to say, congratulations, you have won the elections and all of that. He didn't stop there. They didn't go to court. PDP as a party did not go to court to contest the result of the elections. And it really, you know, is something totally different from what we have always had, you know, during elections or about elections in Nigeria, which is an indication that democracy probably, you know, from President Buhari's perspective and analysis is really growing in Africa. And don't forget, we have had elections in this country that were very inconclusive, even though with the inconclusive declarations on elections in Kogi State and Bayelsa State, the president still feels very strongly that you know, democracy seems to be growing in Nigeria. Another very important thing to note about democracy in Nigeria is the fact that INEC, by analysis, you know, because people are beginning to wonder. You know, we said it on Monday, was it yesterday, that we're analyzing it and said, if on the long run, we have a classical case of elections being inconclusive in Kogi and in Bayelsa State. And in another few months from now, a general election, especially the gubernatorial election in Nigeria, will be taking place again. So how many will INEC eventually declare inconclusive? So INEC, by analysis, came up to say, we are learning the ropes. And as a matter of fact, elections have become really very competitive in recent past. And that's because the process that INEC introduced in conducting elections in Nigeria is really making it really very competitive. That means you have to go and do your own work very well. Reach out to the people, let your campaign be very grounded and rooted so that people can come out en masse on the day of election to vote for you. Unlike before, where some parties are actually reaching out to people, but some parties are busy calculating and strategizing how to rig the elections.
Okay, well, let me say true to the story. Has democracy come to stay in Nigeria? Well, I think I may go with what Mr. President said. Yes, democracy has come to stay in Nigeria. But the issue is, it's not just about democracy coming to stay. Are we leaving out the true essence of democracy? Democracy is all about good governance. Democracy is all about inclusive governance. Inclusive in the sense that every individual in that community or in that country should be a part of the decision-making in that nation. But are we witnessing that in Africa? Africa as a continent, well, largely we have more democratic government in Africa, more democratic government in Africa.
Yeah.
But we still have issues of corruption bordering Africa heavily. We still have the issue of diseases bordering Africa heavily. We still have the issue of poverty and violence, all sorts of unrest still bordering Africa. So maybe in name, we have democracy, heavily rooted in Africa, but the true spirit of democracy, do we have it rooted in Africa? I'll say no. Are we living out democracy as it should be in Africa? I'll say no. And that is one thing we need to be able to begin, well, that's one thing we need to learn to imbibe. For democracy to have its true meaning, and for Africa as a continent to be able to enjoy the benefits of democracy, we should be able to learn as a people and as individual nations and collectively as a continent to abide by the rule of law and focus on delivering good governance to the people. That is the only way we can sufficiently say that, yes, democracy is strongly rooted in Africa. But until that is
done, from your explanation, what I got is that Africa as a continent is actually not enjoying the dividend of democracy.
Yeah, on paper,
now,
we
because
just
the
say
democratic process of probably electing governors, presidents in Africa seems to have aligned, with the rule of law to a very large extent. The reason is that, in recent past elections that are taking place in Africa, in Tanzania, former President Goodluck Jonathan was there as part of, the people to ensure that transition was well done. And that election went really very smooth. And so many other places, Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, and so many other places where elections are taking place. But truth is that the process of really making sure that the right persons get into power is really becoming something that nations of the world, maybe Africa as a continent is beginning to experience. But the truth is just that democracy does not actually, it doesn't end just electing people into office. It goes beyond that. Mm-hmm. And the extent to which we expect it to go is per definition. Mm-hmm. Democracy is the government of the people, for the people, by the people. And so if it's really for the people, that aspect of it is something that is really very not obvious every time we have a democratic rule in major countries in Africa. And that's the fact that the people do not enjoy the dividend. Health is something, that people still struggle. Almost everybody leave Africa to go and seek, good health facility outside, the country, except a few countries in Africa, within the continent, who probably are not doing badly. A place like South Africa.
That's just a one out of the many countries in Africa.
All of that. So anyway, we feel that, Buhari's statement is something he really wants to live by. By the end of his 4-year tenure, most probably will beginning to align fully with this statement to say, yes, democracy is come, and when we have the right leader in place, the dividend of democracy will not be anything difficult for people to begin to enjoy, and all of that. Anyway, let's quickly bring you another story. Now, 9 foreigners jailed, 5 years for oil theft. Now, Justice Ibrahim Buba of the Federal High Court, sitting in Lagos, has sentenced 9 foreigners to 5 years imprisonment each, convicting them for stealing over 3.4 million metric tons of crude oil from Nigeria. Now, 5 of the convicts are Filipinos, while other 4 are from Bangladesh. Now, the convicts were intercepted by the Nigerian Navy on the 27th of March 2015. While they were trying to take the stolen product loaded in their vessel, empty Asteris, out of the country. Delivering his judgment, Justice Buba convicted them on 4 counts in relation to the crime and sentenced each of them to a jail term of 5 years with an option of 20 million naira. You see, I have come to have problem with judgment from our courts, from the court system. It's really, really very... So you are collecting 100 million for these 5 people for a very bad act of stealing. They didn't only just steal. They are stealing our inheritance. They are stealing, what belongs to us, what Nigerian people actually depend on solely. They are taking our crude out of the country. Now, they were caught once. Have we established how many times that they have perpetrated this evil and they were not caught? Mm-hmm. Now, what are you benchmarking your fine option? What are you benchmarking it on?
Why the option of fine?
I don't get.
If our laws cannot be strict on its own to punish offenders,
now you allow these guys to go and they'll be like people who are stealing crude oil and you are asking them for 20 million, not $20 million, 20 million naira. I mean, that is ridiculous. It's lugubrious.
We've had a situation before. I can't recall the exact case, but we've had a situation in Nigeria before where a politician, a Nigerian politician, had a sentence of this sort, and then he had the jail term, and he had the option of fine. And he just put his hand into his briefcase, right there.
Lucky Bill did that.
I'm like, really?
Take your money. I mean, what are you talking about?
What legacy are we leaving behind? If our laws cannot be strong enough, and the issue now is, let's look at it from the other
and then all
why 5
laws,
years? Why 5 years? Is it because they're foreigners? If a Nigerian was convicted of this, was brought before this judge on this same allegation or this same offense, would he have gotten 5 years and then the option of fine?
When Nigerians are being killed almost on an everyday basis.
What legacy are we leaving behind? This is a president that is trying so hard to make sure that offenders of this nature are brought to book and justice prevails, and we set a precedent, a precedent of good living. And then we have the judiciary on the other hand. I mean, it's unfair. To the Nigerian people, this is
I need you to
unfair.
clear my worries. Is it every crime in law that have an option of fine?
No, not all.
Some you just get the jail sentence and that's it.
But the thing is, it also depends largely on the individual, that is the judge or the presiding judge that sits there. Because the thing is, with the beauty of law is that it's dynamic. The way I read a particular law and the way I understand it and the way I interpret it will obviously be different from how you read it and how you interpret it. That's the reason why you have the option of appealing. So if you feel, okay, the judge did not do so much justice, especially as regards the law, then you have to appeal. You go to a higher court, and by the time you get to the Supreme Court, then you know, okay, this is the final benchmark. You cannot go further. If you have any other matter, the only person you can appeal to is God. And obviously, when we leave this realm, when we leave this physical realm, and all of that. But you see, laws are different in nature. And the thing is, we have so much laws that conflict. We've said it on CROSSFIRE before.
Laws.
We have conflicting laws. You check a particular law, and then there may be option of fine, 2,000 naira, 20,000 naira, yes. Option of fine. You have another law that is strict, no option of fine. And at the end of the day, you want a sane society.
Anyway, I still don't feel that they got judgment. I mean, these guys, I still don't feel that they got judgment. For me...
This judgment is largely unfair to the Nigerian
Exactly,
people.
because, I mean, as far as I am concerned, they got away with this. They actually got away with this because these guys, I mean, even if they call back home, Bangladesh, and tell them, you have to raise money or else I go to jail. The people who are collecting them or who are part of the racket of stealing, they will make this money available like instanta. But let's see how the new administration actually work to strengthen, the Nigerian laws and let us begin to witness something commensurate to a crime, that people, actually commit, as a matter of fact. Now, let's quickly take our next story, and this is really very interesting. Now, federal government may employ jobless graduates as teachers. This is what the Minister for Employment is actually, is probably...
I heard about this story, and all I could do was shake my head.
Why?
I couldn't help but shake my head.
Why?
And we're wondering why the quality of education in Nigeria is terrible. But go on with the story.
Okay. Now, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, says not all youths in the country are not entitled to this 5,000 naira monthly stipend promised by the APC-led federal government. Now, the minister who spoke at an event to mark the 5th anniversary of Bina Foundation and graduation ceremony of its students in Enugu State, noted that current crop of teachers in public schools were half-baked. Now, the minister also added that the federal government intends to convert most of the unemployed graduates to teachers in a bid to tackle graduate unemployment. Now, Dr. Ngige explained that contrary to the widely held belief that 5,000 naira was meant for all youths, only the vulnerable ones amongst them will benefit. Now, what makes a youth vulnerable?
Probably no education.
No education, no job.
Yeah.
No education, no job, no family.
No.
Yes, I mean, it should break down this vulnerability. And when I read this report, I was just like, I mean, how do you mean they are vulnerable?
He needs to come out to defend.
Anyway, I think every youth that doesn't have a means of income is actually vulnerable. It's subject, anything can come. If a group of armed robbers comes around and they tell you, why are you struggling so much? Join us.
But if you look at his statement, he said, I mean, the 5,000 naira stipend was not meant for all youth, only the vulnerable. Yes. I'm going to underline vulnerable.
That's why I'm saying, how do you define vulnerability? And how would you measure vulnerability in a particular youth, for example? I mean, that's the analysis. How do you really determine? And that's what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to think that if I work with him and it says something like this and we need to interpret it, the way I'm going to look at it would be that every youth that has not acquired a skill to do anything and does not have a job.
Do you think maybe he was also looking at youth who have a sort of physical impediment or the other? Do you think maybe he also had that in mind when he talked about vulnerable? Maybe also.
Anyway, it depends on the way to look at it. But you know, the thrust of the story really, it's in graduates being converted to teachers. Jobless graduates.
I think that is completely
unemployed
wrong.
Graduates.
That is completely wrong because
I don't think so.
Teaching in Nigeria, the reason why teaching in Nigeria is at this level is because we have a lot of people teaching who do not have passion for teaching. A lot of people are teaching, they do not know how to impact. Teaching is all about impacting knowledge, Dapo.
Let them subject all of them to teaching practice. Let them give them six months teaching practice.
I never had interest in mathematics, but I've had teachers in secondary school that I don't care how much of a blockhead you are. But once they step up there and they begin to teach, you will fall in love with mathematics. Those are individuals who have the passion. Those are individuals who were trained. You know, the whole teacher training issue, process and all of that. These were people who were thoroughly trained on how to teach, how to impact others, and the subject matter. Today you have English teachers speaking is and was in class, and those are graduates. So the issue is,
let me tell you, this English lady, Shama, the guy who led my class when I was in school, is from Ile-Ife, I guess. This gentleman,
I can imagine
this gentleman cannot possibly, and I'm not exaggerating, I don't know where and how he got there. Anytime we want to have a test or we want to write a major exam, we do tutorials. And most of the time, because the guy is very good in physics and mathematics and all of that. So when it comes up, he will just tell us what we are going to do now. Sometimes he will use what are going to be done now. I mean, it's really very bad. All right.
That's that TV. I don't want to crack up.
We'll bring you more on this story. Let's go on a short break now. When we come back, we'll bring you more stories. We'll be right back.
So, did you like what you just saw? I know you did. It's very simple. If you want to see more, just subscribe to our channel right now.